Hello, and in this video we're going to watch Nestor from Nicaragua who got a band 8 in this IELTS speaking mock test. Let's see how he did it. Okay, so this is the IELTS speaking test taking place today online. My name is Keith O'Hare, and hello, can you tell me your full name, please?
My name is Nestor Artola.
Great, and what can I call you?
You can call me Nestor.
Okay, great. So Nestor, in the first part of this test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk first of all about your hometown. Where is your hometown?
I live in Leon City, which is my hometown. In my hometown, it's located in Central America, in Nicaragua. And currently I'm living in Managua, but I lived in my hometown for 10 years.
And do you like your hometown?
I love it so much. There are a lot of things that you can do. The beaches, for example, are really nearby. It only takes you 20 minutes for you to get there by bus, or if you are just driving your own car, it can take you, it will take you like 15 minutes for you to go there.
Mm-hmm. And what's the oldest part of your hometown?
When it comes to the oldest part, I will have to say this is the cathedral. We have a cathedral that was built in the first centuries when we were colonized by, Spaniards, and this is one of the wonderful things which is declared by UNESCO for you to sightsee if you would like to come and visit my hometown.
Right. Let's talk now about meeting new people. Do you like meeting new people?
Of course. I don't want to sound like, like a person that is very proud about this, but I would have to say that I'm going to be meeting people depends on the things that I can offer them and the things that I can learn from them, right? And in fact, I can learn different things from different kind of people. And I think this is a really good way because you can change ideas and at the same time, you can share experience, which are good, right? For the things that you have been doing good or for the things that they have been doing good. So I think that is a balance.
Do you often meet new people?
I would have to say because of my work, I don't do it regularly as I used to do it in the past. But from time to time, I meet new people. It turns out that at least every Sunday, I travel back to my hometown, and my stepfather, he is always having small parties, and I have the opportunity to meet new people every now and then.
How do you feel when you meet new people?
That's going to be depending on the person itself, but at the very beginning, I will feel like relaxed, comfortable. I don't have any problem talking about different kind of subjects, politics, environment, these social things that actually are happening or is going on.
Let's move on and talk about movies now. What kind of movies do you like?
I would have to say that I don't have any particular, favorite kind of movie. I love to watch different kind of movie. The last movie that I watched was John Dick, I think it was. Yeah, we have 1, 2, and 3, so I watch all of them, and I love also to watch those movies that give you something that is related to trends. For example, nowadays we have the dilemma of social network, where they're talking about what is going on with your cell phone and the social networks and how social networks are attracting you in order for you to start consuming of the things that are on social networks.
And do you prefer to watch movies at home or in the cinema?
Honestly, nowadays, I would have to say at home. I have my home theater. So basically, I can watch any movie that I want. I do have a subscription on Netflix, but I'm going to be honest with you, Netflix doesn't offer the right amount of good series that you can watch from. So there are some websites that I can navigate in.
Okay.
I can say I can watch movies there.
So let's have a look now how Nestor is doing after part one. Okay. First of all, fluency. Well, I think he speaks very fluently, right? He has these very long turns and only occasional self-correction, once or twice. I think also he's using a range of connectors, although I do notice there's a bit of repetition with the phrase "I would have to say." He overuses that a little bit, but by and large, his fluency is great. I think he's up there at a band 8 level of fluency for me. Vocabulary. Well, vocabulary. He does use a range of vocabulary to discuss all the topics, right? We talked about his hometown, about movies, and he does that with some precision. And I think he has a strong awareness of style and collocation, right? It turns out that, or any particular favorite kind of movie, very nice collocations and language. One or two inappropriacies or mistakes. He said proud about instead of proud of, and to change ideas rather than exchange ideas. But for me, vocabulary, at least a 7, and I'll be listening for the potential to go up to an 8. Grammar, I thought was very, very good. I mean, he's using a very wide range of structures and with quite a bit of flexibility. I mean, for a part 1, it is difficult to show off a high range of grammar, but he's using future continuous tenses, and he has these multiple clause sentences or utterances. So lots of sentences with lots of clauses and even embedded clauses, which give it a really rich, complex structures put together. I mean, a rich level of grammar, right? I mean, for instance, he says, for example, nowadays, we have the dilemma of social networks where they are talking about what is going on with your cell phone and the networks and how social networks are attracting you in order for you to start consuming the things that are on the social networks. Long sentences with all these multiple clauses. I mean, really, really nice. So for me, his grammar, probably going to be an 8. I'll be listening out to see if he gets up to the level 8, but certainly on the way, despite 1 or 2 mistakes, right? I mean, he says, I don't want to sounds like, instead of I don't want to sound like. So there was a fault with the S, but it wasn't a persistent mistake. It was just a one-off. So I think he's great. Grammar's very good. Likewise, pronunciation. What about my pronunciation? Keith, pronunciation. I thought he was an 8. I thought he was easy to understand throughout, and he's using a wide range of pronunciation features, such as sentence stress, word stress, connected speech, intonation patterns were spot on, and over long sentences as well. I think there was one word I didn't catch, but it wasn't a big problem at the moment. So for me, he's certainly up at the 7 and 8, and I'm feeling he's definitely online for an 8. But let's see how he does in part 2 and 3. Great. So now, next, I'm going to give you a topic. Okay, I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to prepare. You can make some notes if you wish. And okay, I'm going to paste and copy this into the chat box.
Okay.
Right. Can you see that?
Yes, I see it.
Great. So I'd like you to describe an area of science that you're interested in. You've got 1 minute to prepare. Right. Okay. So remember, you've got 1 to 2 minutes for this. Don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Sure. When it comes to math, I would have to say that there are many, when it comes to math, I'm sorry. When it comes to science, I would have to say that I can pick on different kind of subjects, but the one that I'm going to be talking about today, it's about math. The reason why that I'm going to be talking about math is because I have the opportunity to have an amazing teacher when I was in high school, and I wanted to play cricket with her. I remember that she gave us some kind of assignments where she told us that we need to study. She was teaching us some kind of equations that I quite don't remember the name right now, but I might tell you that I felt so confident that I said to myself, Nestor, don't worry about this. I think it's going to be a really great opportunity just to not pay attention to this. And tomorrow that I'm going to be taking the test, it's going to be just fine. So I sat down, the math teacher gave me this piece of paper. I just did my best and answered the exam. And it was funny because she immediately, checked the exam and she gave me a 0, right? And I was so in shock because I was the geek, right, in this lesson. I felt really disappointed, but I think that I learned my lesson not to be, confidence on the things. I think that you need to have certain kind of preparation. And in my personal opinion, the reason why math is very important, it's because definitely it has to do with everything nowadays. Right now, for example, we have different kind of games, we have different kind of apps, and math has a really great impact in these apps because thanks to math, they have been able to be
right.
developed.
I'm going to stop you there. Great. Right. So we've been talking about an area of science you're interested in. I'm going to go on and ask you a few more questions related to that. Let's talk about scientific inventions first. Can you tell me about a recent scientific invention that you think is important?
Well, I would have to say that currently, a recent scientific inventions is the AI, which is the artificial intelligence. It's quite interesting to see how, for example, you can just write down a script, you put it on in a box, in a description box, and then somebody that is not actually a person actually can tell what you just wrote in that script, and it can make you a video. So even though that is something that we have advanced a lot, I would have to say that in my internal thoughts, I would have to say that it's a kind of freaky, a kind of it's really a scare me because
why is it
perhaps
scary?
Because there are people out there that perhaps they are gonna use this against you, right? I can imagine, for example, people just trying to talk to other people when we have these different kind of apps and they are meeting new people, and perhaps you don't know if you are actually talking to a real person or to an AI, and that it could lead you to different kind of psychological problem. For example, nowadays,
I'm going to move on. So tell me about the different kinds of influence science has on our everyday lives.
When you're talking about influence, what do you mean about that?
So what are the different ways that science influences the way we live today?
Okay, all righty. I would have to say that, let me go ahead and give you some example. Some people right now with this situation with the quarantine, they have decided to take classes from home, which is totally great if you want to move on with your career or advance in your skills that you want to develop. However, I have also realized that as long as you are in front of a computer, you have less skill to talk to other people. So the more you spend just talking to new people in front of your computer, or spending your whole day doing these activities where you are talking to people in front of the computer, then you will have less chances to develop your skills outside in the outside world, right? And I think that it's one of the things that actually is managing society to a situation that it's going to be quite difficult then to get back on track.
And how do you think governments can support scientific development?
I would have to say that government have the different kind of programs, but that's going to be also depending on the people that's going to be in charge of delivering those programs to society. For example, there are many countries where they invest a lot of money in programs like technology. We have the cases like Japan, China, Russia. But in developing countries, I would have to say that the person in charge of that kind of department that will help society to use technology, they can have a person that is aware of the situations. What are the good things that they can bring? What are the benefits, or what are the setbacks, right, of technology?
Mm-hmm. And to what extent is international cooperation important when it comes to science?
Absolutely. I do think that international cooperation is very important. For example, we have the case of the situation right now that is affecting worldwide. And the truth is that because of where these situations originated, they have been able to control, to measure, and to do different kind of researches that will help now other countries to face, right, the situation against this pandemic. It turns out that the more informed a country is, and the more they share the information they have been able to found, that cooperation will be even better, right? And basically.
Okay, we'll stop here. That's the end of the speaking test. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And now the moment of truth. Let's see how Nestor did after part 2 and part 3. Did he move up? And where did he move up to? Well, fluency first. I think he's at the 8 level, probably a strong 8. I mean, he speaks fluently. The long turns with occasional self-repetition, even at a band 8, you can have some self-repetition, just a little bit. What I liked was that he's developing his topics coherently, which is essential for that fluency. You know, he's in part 3, he's giving his opinion, he's giving why, and giving examples with nice connectors all the way through. My only hesitation was that there is a noticeable repetition of, I would have to say, that connector, right? Which is a shame. My suggestion is to keep on top of that. I mean, really control that to make sure he's using a wider range. But I think certainly an 8 for fluency. Vocabulary, well, a wide range, used flexibly and mostly with precision. He is using some less common and idiomatic vocabulary, things like move on with your career, get back on track. I would like to see more. I think this is an area he can develop. I think probably his vocabulary is around the 8 level, but I think he does need to develop it. I felt in part 3, to get the band 9 level, I think he needs to be using a wider range of vocabulary without effort and really precisely to dig deep into those topics. But I still think he's a band 8. He uses paraphrase effectively, which is essential for a band 7, 8, and 9. You must paraphrase correctly, which is where when you want to say something and you can't find the right word, and you find a way round it, right? He talks about the equations from his maths teacher, some kind of equations, and he can't remember the name, and he says that I don't quite remember the name right now. So he finds a way round of using, not saying what kind of equations, but to explain it. And that was nice. He did that a couple of times. Yes, there were some inappropriacies or mistakes, but not many. It's a scare me instead of it scares me. I think he was thinking of awake, afraid, a scare, but it's scare, but very few. So vocabulary, nice. I would say 8. And the same for grammar. I think he's also at the 8. He continues to use complex sentences, continuous tenses, perfect aspect, multiple clause sentences. There are some mistakes still there with the S in plurals and the third person S. There's a few confusions, but not so many. I think overall, I would still give an 8 for grammar. Pronunciation, I was wondering, was it an 8 or a 9? Because I thought he was so easy to understand throughout. I was impressed with the intonation patterns over long utterances. There were 2 or 3 areas I didn't quite catch the word. There's a confusion with trick and tricky or trickist, and I wasn't completely clear. And I think maybe that stops him being a 9, but I would put him at a band 8. So overall, I think an excellent band 8. Well done, Nestor. Well, what about my advice then? My advice to Nestor would be the following. First of all, for fluency, be careful of the repetitive cohesive features or using the same connectors. Try and expand. Be careful really with the I would have to say, which is overused far too much. So to make sure you're integrating and using different connectors. Number 2, build your vocabulary. I think there's a very strong vocabulary there, but it needs expanding so you can use it with more precision and you can use less common and idiomatic vocabulary with perfection and precision. So I think lots of practice on just building up the vocabulary there. Number 3, I would say for your grammar, just be aware of the S on plurals and the third person. There's sometimes it's omitted, it's used on the wrong word sometimes. And there's a slip now and again, but just get on top of that. And I think that will really help get your grammar even stronger. So those are my tips. Let's go on to have a listen to some ideas, well, in a discussion with myself and Nestor about learning English, about the IELTS test, and Nestor's tips for the rest of you to get up to that band 8 and band 9 level.
I'm sorry, being the fact that I need to work on vocabulary, and you know that the vocabulary that, for example, for part 3 questions, is not easy to talk with people that have the same level of you in English, right? What do you think is going to be the best way for me to say, okay, let me go ahead and learn more vocabulary? So for me to...
It's a challenge. I think there are several things to think about when it comes to learning vocabulary. One of them is think about your passive and your active vocabulary. Now, you've probably got a lot of passive vocabulary, right, that you've read about, you've heard, but that you're not used to using. I would first of all focus on that passive vocabulary. So don't worry too much about learning new words, but look at the words that you can kind of recognize and see, and start focusing on activating them. The challenge is that you hit the nail on the head. When you said, I need to be speaking with people of a similar level in order to be developing that, it's absolutely right. I mean, if you've got a speaking partner who's a band 7, they're not going to challenge you as much. But if you can find somebody of a really high level and take, for example, I would suggest you take some unusual reading material, like from a scientific journal or from a newspaper or from, I mean, we talked about science, but maybe it's about sport, like a sports magazine or a gym magazine. And you take an article that's interesting that you've read. And again, don't focus on learning all the new vocabulary, but focus on talking about that article. So you've read an article on, on the coronavirus and the development of the virus. Put that down and then practice either with a partner or even by yourself, summarizing it, repeating it, talking about it again and again. So you're actively speaking out the words and the kind of language you need when you're discussing it. And you'll find as you're speaking, you go, oh, what was that word? And you go back, oh, asymptomatic, that's the word. And then you put that into a sentence and you start activating that word that you'd recognized, but you hadn't actually started speaking. So talking about a wide range of articles that you can read, or it could be podcasts that you've listened to, podcasts on politics or government, international cooperation, the Olympic Games, whatever, and speaking to somebody, or you could do it on your own, summarizing it and talking about it so that you're effectively activating this higher level, diverse vocabulary from a wide range of different topics. And I think that would be my number one thing to focus on.
How to move from one band to the other one? What would be the process, and how much do you think is going to take time? How much do you think is going to take in order for me to that higher level, to the next point?
Good question. From a band 8 to a band 9 is the biggest gap of all. It's a huge gap that takes a long time, because a band 9 is effectively a proficient, similar to native speaker level. I think one thing to do is to be very, very clear about the gaps. So I would go to the band descriptors, and this is what I keep looking at. I am sure you've seen these. This is what I have on my desk in front of me, is share the band descriptors, is to go through and just be very, very clear about what you've got right and what not. So, for example, it talks about fluency and coherence. Speaks fluently with only rare repetition or self-correction. Rare repetition or self-correction. So if you're recording yourself and you're hearing yourself repeat or correct yourself more than once or twice, then that's something to work on. The next one, any hesitation, is content related rather than finding words. So again, if you find in a conversation you're looking for the right word in English, then that's going to stop you getting a 9. So you need to be, it's not something you can fix with a trick. It's like just continuous practice to build up that level. But I think using the band descriptors as your guide to say, this is where the gaps are. It's this one, and this one. For example, lexical resource, I mentioned, the second one, uses idiomatic language naturally and accurately, still needs a little bit of work. So I think that's one thing. I would take the band descriptors as my guide, to say that's what I need to work on. But then it really is, it's not so much, there's a bit of technique in the exam, but I think it's as much about your overall spoken English ability, right? I mean, when you're going from a 6 to a 7, there are clear things people can do to move up, but 8 to a 9, it's like saying, how do I become a native speaker? It took me about, to be a native speaker, about 18 years to be a fluent, articulate, educated native speaker. I mean, it takes time, but yeah, I would use the band descriptors as a guide. What tips do you have for the listeners to help them prepare for IELTS?
Okay. I would have to say that I will give you like 3 main tips that have been working a lot in my situation. And the tip number 1, everybody, is that you have the opportunity to listen. Look, the more you listen, the better you become. Because when you were just a child, before you even start speaking, before you even reaching 3 years old, your parents were teaching you how to speak, right? So it's very important to listen to your favorite artist or actress or actor, right? And try to mimic the way they speak. So you are, in that way, you are improving your fluency, you're improving your vocabulary, you're improving your pronunciation just by working on that part, right? Remember that when you are going to be taking an IELTS, you need to be aware of the structure of the exam. Try to put yourself in situations where you need to speak for 2 minutes or even more, right? The idea over here is not only to focus on those 2 minutes. For example, I'm referring to the part number 2. I'm talking about that part specifically, where you will have the opportunity to speak for at least 10 minutes. You grab a topic and try to develop that topic and try to speak as much as you can. Eventually, the examiner, at the moment of your IELTS examination, it will ask you to stop, and then you stop, no problem, right? But at least you reached that part of speaking, right? And obviously that will help you out. So there's not a magic formula, or there's not a tricky, it's just based on consistency, working on your fluency, pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar range, and coherence, right? My second advice is to please watch Keith videos, right? And I'm going to be honest with you. This is not like promoting Keith, but if you follow the first advice, which is listen, try to develop your listening skill. And if you listen to Keith how to speak, the way he actually responds to things. He can be your, let's see, your famous actor, right? And you can mimic the way he speaks. So you have just right there an example that you can follow that pattern in order for you to develop your fluency and the speaking skills that you need to work on. And my third advice, it's about practice. Find a person that is at least at your same level of speaking. You know, we have different kind of bands, and the fact that if you find a person that says they speak English, you need to also understand, or you need to have like a quick assessment if this person actually knows more than you. Because if you go for those people who know more than you, then you will have that need of preparing yourself, and obviously to compete, right? You have that kind of internal competition that will help you out to move on, right? So it's very important practice, but it's very important to have smart practice. Because if you speak, let's say, if you spoke, let's say, with a lower band, that would be a little, you know, uncomfortable. You will feel like you are not moving forward in your skills. So to wrap up, number one, listen. Remember that there are not tricky things. Number two, listen to Keith's video. They are extremely important, and they will help you out to improve your vocabulary, pronunciation, and everything related to the speaking part. And last but not least, practice, right? Practice your speaking, but smart speaking, smart practice, I'm sorry, where you find a person that is at the same or a little bit higher than you, and you can learn from. Thank you.
Very, very coherently explained. Lovely, Nestor. Thank you very, very much. That was great. I'm sure that will be very useful for the students. Nice. So a big thank you for watching this video, and a big thank you to Nestor for doing this. Thank you, Nestor, very much. It was great fun to do the test with you. I hope this helps all of you see what you need to be at a Band 8, and also what you need to jump up to the Band 9 level as well. Great. If you're wondering, who is this? Well, my name's Keith, and I run the Keith Speaking Academy, which is here to help you speak better English, help you with your IELTS speaking, to get a higher score on the IELTS speaking test. I do have 2 online courses if you're interested in improving your speaking skills. There's the IELTS Speaking Success Get a Band 7+, which is a complete preparation course for speaking. But if you want to focus on your fluency, I have the Fluency for IELTS Speaking, which is just focusing mainly on that skill set. And it's a really hard, intensive workout, but the rewards are great. Great. Thank you very much again for watching. If you've liked this, please do leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Share the video with your friends. Subscribe to YouTube and turn on that little notification button. I cannot wait to see you here again soon. Thank you very much again. Take care now. Bye-bye.